Backstreet Boys, NSYNC too. Britney Spears is kind of cute. We watch TRL on MTV. Everybody three count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to a great edition of Heel Ya, Are You Afraid of the Mark? And today we had a very special guest. We talked everything Lucha Underground. We talked about everything PWG. We talked about Wrestling Society X on MTV. This week we had a sit-down interview with the one, the only head referee, Rick Knox, and it is a doozy. Hope you enjoy. It is now time for the www.bookprowrestlers.com interview. BookProWrestlers.com, a professional licensed company that has been assisting professional wrestlers with their booking and helping promoters of all types book quality, dependable wrestling talent for wrestling events, personal appearances, seminars, clinics, and autograph sessions. www.bookprowrestlers.com. Today we have head referee of Lucha Underground and PWG, Rick Knox, on the show. Rick Knox, thank you for tuning in.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to jump right to it. We got a lot to talk about. So we're going to do the generic, how'd you get your start in the business?
Got my start basically by a chance newspaper article that I read one day. I'd actually kind of, I'd been into wrestling all through the 80s as a teenager and all that, and I kind of dropped out in the early 90s, just lost interest a little bit. And then around 1996, I came across this newspaper article about a local wrestling school called the School of Hard Knocks that was in San Bernardino, California, which was literally almost walking distance from my house at the time. And it was ran by two former wrestlers, Bill Anderson and Jesse Hernandez. And Jesse actually used to be a referee, did referee time with WWF and pretty much all over the place. Read this article about them and how they had this school that taught pro wrestling, and they actually had their own homegrown wrestling promotion called the Empire Wrestling Federation, the EWF. Which ran predominantly here in the Inland Empire, hence the name EWF, and was really intrigued by this newspaper article about these guys. It was right in my backyard. Had no idea. I knew who Bill and Jesse both were from being a wrestling fan in the 80s. Was very familiar with both of them. So I actually sent Bill Anderson an old VHS tape, backyard brawling stuff that I improperly trained, real bad fight with your friends in the backyard stuff. And, he was really graceful in his critique. He said, he saw our love for the business and our appreciation for what we do. Stopped short of burying us, thankfully, because it was pretty horrible footage. If I watched it now, I'm sure it would be just cringeworthy. But he said, come on down, school out. And so I did, and went in there and kind of got my first up close look at what these guys go through. I mean, when you see someone get slammed on a ring 5 feet in front of you for the first time that close, and you kind of get a feel of what these guys really go through. And it was pretty quick. I realized, yeah, not for me. I don't think I can do this. Not at my age. I mean, maybe if I'd started 10, 15 years earlier, I maybe could have taken that route. But I was still really intrigued by the whole thing. So I started going to the EWF shows, just totally wanting to help out any way I could. I took pictures. I helped with their programs. I helped with their flyers, helped design T-shirts, stuff like that. And when I would hang out at the school on class nights, after they would have classes, they'd have wrestling matches. And they'd say, hey, get in the ring and referee. And after doing that a few times, some of the guys said that I was good enough to be on the shows. So they pretty much told Bill and Jesse they should start booking me on their shows, and they did, and never stopped. And that was in 1996, I believe. So, yeah, it's been going strong about 20 years now.
That's awesome. And what I like about your story is you knew right away that you didn't want to wrestle, and reffing was more of your thing, which is something I can relate to, as I am a referee here in the Maritimes as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like you're still involved. You get to a lot of attention and spotlight. You're heavily a big part of the show, And, I kind of came at a point where I was like, okay, well, do I want to be a referee? Do I want to be a manager? Maybe manager would be cool. But then you're maybe out there once, maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on how many guys you got in your stable or whatever. But as a referee, you're kind of more consistently involved through the whole show. And that was exactly what I wanted to do. So, yeah, it all worked out.
So, going from there, you have made quite a career for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now?
Well, right now I predominantly work for pretty much just 2 federations at the time. I mean, at one point I was probably working for 12 at the same time, in the early 2000s when things were really pumping for me. But right now I predominantly work for 2 federations, Lucha Underground and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Still do some other shows occasionally. I'm getting more involved with the promotion down in San Diego called Finest City Wrestling, FCW. They just started up a school with B-Boy as their head trainer down there, and I've got some dates coming up with them in the summer. So pretty much PWG and Lucha Underground are the main ones, though, that's been taking up all my time over the last 2 years probably. AWS seems to have stopped running. We're on a hiatus. Don't know when or if we'll be coming back. But until then, yeah, it's pretty much been all PWG and Lucha Underground. I
just saw that this past month they did PWG Prince. Can you tell us how that event went?
It went really good. I had a blast. Remember thinking beforehand it was kind of an odd card the way it was built. No, I don't think there were any tag team matches on it that I can remember at all. But the matches were stellar. We saw the debut of a good friend of mine, Jeff Cobb. It was his first time wrestling in a PWG ring. He got to wrestle Chris Hero, very well received, and got the welcome or the please come back chant. Hope to see him there in the future. Drew Galloway, another good friend of mine, got a big win over Michael Elgin. The crowd was on fire. I read some reviews later about some people kind of saying some negative comments about some of the audience and the way the fans were reacting. In the ring, I didn't really sense any of that. I thought it was great all the way around.
I had a chance to see some of the fan footage of the show, and it looked like Dalton Castle had probably one of the largest pops I've ever seen in the independents in a long time.
Yeah, his when he's come out, he's only been at PWG I think twice now, and when he's maybe 3 times, I'm not sure, but when he comes out, he gets quite an ovation and reaction, which is a little unusual. I mean, you would kind of think that the PWG fans really wouldn't take to his sort of character or gimmick, so to speak, but the exact opposite actually has happened. He's being welcomed with open arms by the PWG fans, and I mean, it helps obviously that he's a fantastic wrestler, but when he first came around, I was actually a little unaware of who he was, and he was so over the top. I kind of thought he was coming from TNA and not so much Ring of Honor, and I found out he was a Ring of Honor guy. I was like, wow, that's a little out of their mold. But he's awesome, and the fans really love him. I think you're seeing him climb the ladder definitely of popularity in PWG. He's up at the top.
Well, like you said, Dalton Castle, who comes from ROH, which isn't very a character-based organization, but when you look even further, he comes from Shakara, which then explains everything of why he is the way he is.
Exactly.
So, and then how can you compare working with PWG, which is strictly a wrestling, it's not made for TV, and then you go to Lucha Underground, which is a TV show that features wrestling? What do you have to change as a referee between the two promotions?
You would think not much, but it is a totally different mindset. With Lucha Underground, things are on a much more how should I say strictly regimented basis, I should say. We have certain things that we need to stick with there as far as time frames. There's a little more communication with the production crew during the matches, where in PWG it is very much let them guys go out and do what they want to do. And that's why you see a lot of, matches sometimes stretch on longer than sometimes they need to, or sequences that just get kind of ridiculous and crazy. It's because they're pretty much given free reign at PWG. In a sense, I like that because I don't have nobody screaming in my ear telling me, hey, get them back in the ring, or hey, get control of this stuff. It's a little easier for me because I kind of just let them do their thing. I love them both equally. They're both fantastic in their own way, and it's really the best of both worlds, because with PWG, it's kind of like throw everything on the wall and just kind of see what happens. And Lucha Underground, it's very much more refined, and we know exactly what we're doing going in, so to speak.
When you talk about PWG, everyone thinks it's the who's who of the independent circuit currently to show. It currently shows the best of the independent circuit. What's it like working with these top independent talents from all over the world?
I'll be honest, it spoils you. It does, because after you've done shows in PWG and you've worked with Drew Galloway and Roderick Strong and Chris Hero and literally the best wrestlers in the world, and sometimes it can be an eye opener to go to a different sort of promotion where you're getting guys who aren't even trained sometimes or trained properly, and it definitely spoils you. It makes you think that when you're in the ring with those guys, it kind of makes you think, wow, I've arrived at the big leagues, even if you're technically not in big leagues, so to speak. It makes you feel like you're there, because there's no parallel with their talent with that locker room. Just hanging out in that locker room, I mean. You just want to soak up everything you can while you're in there with those guys. Listen to every story they're telling, listen to every comment they make, every critique of every match, because it's just a bank vault of knowledge with those guys in every sense. And it's an honor to be with those guys. It's a great feeling to see Sami Callihan, Chris Hero, these guys come up to me and say, "Hey, how you been? I hope you have my match tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I've got stuff planned." And it's fantastic to be included in that level of professionalism and entertainmentship. It's fantastic. It really is.
Is there any aspect of PWG where there's it seems like there's so much room to evolve as a company, but they are so stuck on staying where they are because they like where they're at. They're at a spot where they're making money. They're over as a company, and they don't want to change.
I really don't see that happening. I mean, it's so different from any other business model of any other company, not just wrestling promotions, but any company in general. A business model for any successful company is obviously expand, grow. If you're a wrestling company, you want to run more shows, you want to do more venues, you want to tour it around, you want to increase to bigger arenas, bigger venues. That's not PWG's business model. Their business model is produce DVDs, sell them to everyone throughout the world, and get the best wrestling in the world out there. The American Legion Hall in Reseda, as cramped and small and uncomfortable as it is, has developed a cult following. You get people from last show, I think we had someone from Paris there. We've had folks travel from Russia, China, all to come to this dingy little stinky beer-soaked American Legion Hall in the Valley in Southern California. And it's become as popular as the old ECW arena. It's got that air around it. There is a mystique in there. There's a quality in there that can't be denied, I think. And I think PWG feels the same way, that if they do move to another venue, they will lose some of that. I think there is a reality there, but their business model is just keep plugging away, making DVDs and keep selling them. I don't think they have any plans of growing or expanding. People have asked me before, why aren't they on TV? Are they ever going to get a TV show? I have to understand, if PWG were to ever go to television, that would basically mean they're relinquishing control of their product, and what we would get on TV would not be PWG. It'd be a watered down version full of political influence and backstage politics, and that's not what PWG is. So just the fact putting them on TV would be an exact reversal of everything that they're working and trying to do. So they're doing what they do, and they're excelling at what they do, and they've definitely risen to the top of the wrestling world just by making their DVDs, and that seems to be the way they're going to go.
That makes perfect sense. And when you think about them relinquishing control, you think to the moments where, like you had with the Young Bucks, where generally you don't see a ref take on that sort of role. Can you explain that role you took on when it came to working with the Young Bucks?
I think it's just something that kind of just grew and evolved out of something. It was asked. Someone asked me recently, like, what started everything with the Young Bucks, and I honestly was trying to rack my brain, and I could not remember what started it all. But basically, we had such good chemistry, kind of playing off each other, that it evolved into a match by match thing. And when they had a big spot with the Super Smash Brothers, and they wanted to get me involved. I was more than willing. I mean, that's the thing a lot of people don't realize. They see all these video clips of me diving out of the ring and clotheslining guys and getting involved, super kicking guys. I never I never impress it upon them that I want to do that stuff. It is always them approaching me, hey, will you do something in our match? Will you get involved with us? And I'm always more than happy to oblige, obviously. But yeah, I never would request to do something like that. It's just not who I am. I would never do that. But yeah, I think the one thing that stands out working with them, though, is just how safe that they've always been. I mean, I've done stuff with them that I've never would dream of doing with any other wrestler, and they've always protected me and taken good care of me. So yeah, they're fantastic. But it's a little bit of a different scenario with them, because you want to still be, hey, I'm the referee. I got a job in here to enforce the rules, but you want to acknowledge there's that history and that past between us, and anything can happen at any time, which is why you see a lot of times there might be an incident between myself and the Young Bucks, and we'll go 6 months where we're not even in the same ring together. And then the next time we are, there might be something else again, you know. So, I mean, it's not necessarily always that far planned and thought out, but it kind of works out that way sometimes.
Is there any moment with you in PWG, we'll go with both promotions, PW and Lucha Underground, that sticks out to you as your favorite moment working for either promotion?
With Lucha Underground, the couple that stand out would be the Vampiro Pentagon match from season 1, and just the whole, you know, reveal that Vampiro was the master, the Dark Master. That whole match from Vampiro's entrance, coming out wearing the Pope outfit, to the fiery finale of it was just fantastic, and it brought a lot of attention to the show, and brought a lot of basically just attention to Vampiro and Pentagon in general, and Lucha Underground overall. But it seemed like that was one moment that everyone seems to kind of remember. I also have fond memories, hard to say, of when Cage stomped Mac's head through the cinder block up on top of Dario's office. That was another cool moment. Alberto El Patron getting thrown through the glass window in Dario's office. There's literally, I mean, there's almost something every taping session or shooting session with Lucha Underground that I have a great memory of. But as far as PWG, I mean, same thing. I mean, I've been with the company since day one, which next month will be 13 years. And gosh, all those battles of Los Angeles, you know, certain matches do stand out. I remember Brian Danielson coming out and challenging El Generico for the PWG title just after Generico had defended it, or he just won it. I can't remember, but when he came out after the show was done and challenged him, and we had the match, I'll never forget the pop in that armory was just amazing. There's been a lot of great moments at PWG. I mean, obviously the match I competed in was a big blast that people still talk about. I could go on forever with PWG.
And then we look back a little bit further back, and we see that you were part of Wrestle Society X, which had one season. Did you know that the talent that was in that promotion would be what it is today? Because we look back and we see Moose, we see Matt Sydal, Luke Hawx, Justin Credible, Joey Ryan, all these guys who have made names for themselves after going into Wrestle Society X. Tyler Black might be the biggest name out of that list. What was it like working for Wrestle Society X?
At the time when we did that, I think was 2005, 2006, something like that. It was like, for me, it was like a highlight. It was like the epitome of everything I wanted to do in wrestling. It was a local promotion that was paying us well and doing high profile type stuff. It was a little gimmicky and a little over the top as far as the effects and the production and the way that they actually produced the show. I have nothing but fond memories of it, though. And to answer your initial question, yeah, I knew the talent level was going to be something special in there. That's no big surprise that these guys have all gone on to the heights that they have. Yeah, no big surprise there. At the time, you know, I remember telling folks it was probably the best time I ever had in wrestling. That, you know, we shot that entire season over a short time span. It was maybe a week, 10 days, can't quite remember. And I remember just having an absolute blast doing that. It was just fantastic experience working with that level of talent, as well as just the production. I mean, it was so cool. I'd never been a part of something like that where it was a legitimate television production. It was pretty impressive. Obviously, there's a lot of similarities to what WSX did to what Lucha Underground is doing now. They seem to have kind of taken that format and tweaked it and refined it and come up with a little more viable program with it. But yeah, Wrestling Society X was awesome. And just like you said, working with guys like Tyler Black, who obviously is one of the top stars in the world, and just everyone else you named, it's great to see these guys reach the success they're reaching now, and to be able to say that, hey, I was hanging out with them doing indie shows, 10, 15 years ago. It's pretty cool.
Now, a lot of people know you as being a referee, but you've also wrestled 5 matches, mainly under AWS. Can you explain those to me?
The AWS matches were always just kind of, the first time I remember I wrestled Johnny Paradise, who at the time had retired from wrestling, then wanted to come back, as of course everyone who retires from wrestling does. So he came back as a referee and was working AWS shows as a referee. And then he started getting the bug to want to be a wrestler again. So he started, healing it up as a referee, which of course I didn't take kindly to. And we had, altercations in the ring and pushing matches. And I think there was some sort of a battle royal scenario where we actually got in the ring and exchanged blows, and I threw him out of the ring. And so I had a match with him. And out of every match that I did, that was probably the hardest one, because it was a singles match. Johnny Paradise wanted to do a pretty serious, straight one-on-one type match, which was something I really wasn't prepared to do. So I did go through some training at the time to get ready for it. And he ended up beating me. I think it's really my only loss that I've had. All my other matches, of course, were like tag matches and multi-man matches and stuff like that. But he beat me, and I remember it was like a 25-minute match or something. I remember afterwards just wanting to die. I had a whole new level of respect for what the wrestlers do after that. I was just like a zombie for like 90 minutes afterwards, just trying to catch my breath and get my blood pumping again. And of course, he's over there not even breaking a sweat, but it was a pretty amazing experience. And then my other matches were, if I remember right, there was one where I teamed up with a bunch of male competitors to take on all the female competitors. And I think I just got thrown into that match because I had said I didn't want to referee the girls' matches anymore, because I think cheerleader Melissa had speared me and knocked me out. Hudson Idney had kicked me, or I forget. And I was like, enough, I don't want to work with them anymore. So they ended up putting me in a match against them. And of course, I got the pinfall on Katana Vera on that one with the help of Joey Ryan and B-Boy and Little Cholo and everyone, There was another big multi-man tag match, I want to say, with SoCal Crazy. Oh, God, I'm probably blending these matches together, so I shouldn't even say who was in it, but I do remember one with Los Banditos.
I think it was B-Boy, Hector Canales, Joey Ryan, Lil Cholo, Rick Knox, SoCal Crazy.
Okay, that sounds familiar. I remember being in the ring with Los Banditos at some point, so I know they had to have been there somewhere. That would have been Tito and Rico. Maybe that was a different match, but the match at AWS that really everyone gravitates to and wants to talk about is my match with Justin Borden, which happened last September. Justin Borden, my fellow referee at Lucha Underground and PWG, same sort of scenario with him that I'd had with Johnny Paradise several years earlier. He started kind of healing it up and cheating and helping some of the unsavory characters at AWS win matches, and doing some unfavorable things with some of the female competitors and stuff like that. So we kind of had our issues, shoving matches, stuff like that. And I think at one point we were put into one of those tag matches on opposite teams against each other. And that led to us finally having a one-on-one match last September at the last ever AWS show. And it was I won't say it's a highlight for me. I mean, I did get the win, but I mean, there's a lot of pictures and footage on the internet of it, and if you see what you see, you'll know why it's really not a highlight for me. I pretty much got my ass kicked, but I did win the match, and that's all that really mattered, I guess. So yeah, actually, in my 2 straight singles matches, I can go back even further. I had a match in 1999, maybe it was 2000. I wrestled a guy named Dick Danger at the International Wrestling Council, and Frankie Kazarian was our special referee, and I actually got the pin on Dick Danger 1, 2, 3 after Frankie knocked him out with a super kick. So, in the singles matches, I believe I'm 2-1, so I'll take that.
And that Justin Borden match, if you have ever got time on YouTube, is a great watch. And I watched it there a couple weeks ago, and it was just phenomenal to watch too, because neither of you are natural wrestlers. You're more
Right.
made into wrestlers.
Right, it's pretty. There's some awkward moments in it, of course, as you would expect. But people say, "Gosh, why did you do what you did out there?" And why did you do that? And the truth of the matter is, what else was I going to do? I mean, I can't wrestle. If we'd have went out there and tried to have a straight wrestling match, the fans would have been throwing trash at us. So we knew we had to do something memorable, and that's kind of why it turned out the way it did.
So one of the matches I've seen you had is you were in a 6-man tag. You were in a tag match, sorry, with El Generico, Kevin Steen, yourself taking on the Young Bucks and Brian Cage. Can you talk to us about that match?
Yeah, that was another dream for me to be in the look. Same thing. Look at all those guys who are in the match with me and where they're at now. It's pretty neat feeling to look at these guys on TV every week and say, hey, they are my old tag team partners. But no, that was a fantastic time. It's still probably one of my top 3 highlights of my career. It was just so much fun to do and fun to be a part of, and it had actually, if I remember right, this was the second night of the Battle of Los Angeles tournament of that year. And, there was an altercation at the beginning of the show that kind of led to us being put into that 6-man match. So it wasn't something that was actually advertised and built up, if I remember right. It just kind of was announced that day. And so at the beginning of the show. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it looking back on it. It was a fun time and just an honor to be with those guys. And like I said, it's kind of cool to be able to say that, to watch these guys on TV now during the week and say, those are my old tag team partners. It is really cool.
What was it like working with those two El Generico, who now is Sami Zayn, and Kevin Steen, who is now Kevin Owens? What was it like working with them now that you see that they're in WWE?
Well, in a way, it's a shock and it's not that they've gotten to where they are. It's not a shock in that they've had the talent. They're phenomenal storytellers in the ring. They know each other so well, and it's only logical to pair them up against each other. They've been doing it since they were kids. Now they're on the biggest stage of all, wrestling each other. And at the time when I was working with them, in the 2000s and stuff, it was very much they were so independent thinking. You almost couldn't see them working for the corporate machine, so to speak, because their thoughts were too far out from what WWE was always doing. I mean, I'll be honest, we always kind of thought Kevin and Sammy won't last too long because they're going to want to do what they know works, and WWE's not going to let them. Well, WWE. They kind of met in the middle, if you really are honest about it. They kind of were allowed to do what they wanted to do, but they were held back to some degree for safety reasons. I mean, you don't see Sami Zayn doing the brainbuster suplex, stuff like that, but they were still able to tell the matches and tell the stories the way they wanted to. And thinking back, when I worked with them a long time ago, you could see that level of meticulousness and that level of detail that they were putting into their matches. And it definitely paid off because they were so much like two brothers. They would almost get into fights backstage going over stuff because, Kevin would have an idea or Sammy would have an idea and they wouldn't quite be on the same page. And, not like they would get into fist fights, but I mean, they would get into heated arguments because they both cared so much and had such high importance and such high attention to detail in every little thing. I mean, it's overlooked a lot. People don't realize the level of detail that these guys put into the way they move, the way they turn after they bump, the way they sell up, all that stuff. I mean, thought goes into everything, and the way that they would put the thought into it back then, it kind of shows me that they know what they're doing. They deserve to be where they're at, and I'm just glad that WWE is kind of letting them to some degree have free reign out there. Because I mean, look at that ladder match at WrestleMania. I mean, you can tell that had their feet print all over it. They put that thing together.
They are probably two of the best storytellers on that mid card of WWE right now, and it shows because WWE is just letting them take the reins, which they hardly ever do.
Exactly.
So now we're going to move to just to close it up first with some questions from some of the viewers. At Real Mill Machete says, Knox, has there ever been a time you regretted getting in the ring?
Yeah. I remember at Battle of Los Angeles about 2 years ago, Roderick Strong ran in the ring with a chair and attacked Kyle O'Reilly. And me, like an idiot, slid in right after him to try to stop him and got a broken arm as a result. And that's definitely a time I regretted getting in the ring. And you try not to live on regrets and things, I should have done this, should have done that. But it's hard not to think after that incident. I was like, damn it, why did I just not go in the ring? I could have just yelled at him from outside and everything would have been fine. But no, I ended up getting a broken arm because of it. And so, yeah, number one, that's the main one that pops into my head as far as regretting getting in the ring.
Now, with that, did you have to take time off from Lucha Underground or any other PWG shows, or did you just keep...
No. What happened, oddly enough, is that after I got my cast put on, the following week is when we actually started taping the first episode of season 1 of Lucha Underground. And I basically showed up to the tapings in a cast, and they were looking at me like, can you do this? And I was just, worried that they weren't going to let me, but they kind of threw it to me. Are you okay to do this? And I was like, hell yeah, I am. I'm going to do it with the cast on, and basically, shot the first quarter of a season with the broken arm. As far as PWG goes, I think by the time they ran again, the cast might have even been off by then, because they run every 4 to 6, 8 weeks sometimes. So I think there was a break between those shows to where I might not even had a cast on at that one. So I don't think I missed anything for that.
All right, now we have a Facebook question saying, what is the biggest problem with referees in pro wrestling?
Probably the lack of respect, and I don't necessarily mean that in the ring, like the wrestlers don't respect us, because most of the wrestlers do. I'd say it probably comes from management, promoters, stuff like that. Too many instances where being the referee, you're often felt like you're taken advantage of. The referee's the last one to get paid. Oh, we ran out of money. Sorry, the refs don't get paid. Stuff like that. In that situation, sometimes, the refs get a bad rap or get a bad knock. But most of the time, as far as respect in the locker room and in the ring with other wrestlers, unless you get a wise guy or someone who just has a big head, they usually respect us very much so, and we'll do what we say. That very rarely have I had a problem as far as that goes, but yeah, just kind of dealing with I've had promoters tell me, I promise you X amount of dollars. And then when the show's over, they say, oh, sorry, I don't have the amount, which was even less what they promised you. So then they even give you less than that. And it just can leave you in a bad taste in your mouth and makes you think, wow, did they do this with the wrestlers too? And there have been times where I've stopped. Sorry about that. There have been times where I've actually stopped working for guys because of the way they've treated the referees. So.
And then we just have 2 more questions. Who over time has been your favorite referee?
Favorite referee over time. I'm an old fan of an old timer here out in the LA territory named Red Shoes Dugan. As a kid, I remember watching him, and there is some footage of him out there. This dude was phenomenal. He was an old man when I was watching him. He wore red wrestling boots, hence the name Red Shoes Dugan. But he was like the first referee that I remember back in the day doing drop downs when he would go down for his 3 counts, and very physical. He used to be a junior heavyweight wrestler. He had so much clout and respect. I like to tell the story. He's probably the only referee in the wrestling world who was allowed to referee a WWF Heavyweight Championship match in New Japan while wearing an NWA referee jersey. I mean, that's the type of respect this guy commanded. He was awesome. As far as the more guys that I watched in the 80s and 90s, I was a big Tommy Young fan. I liked Tommy Young out of the Carolinas. I thought he was pretty dynamic. I liked David Manning out of Texas. I thought he was pretty good too. He made it look. I always got the impression with David Manning that he made it kind of look like it was always a legitimate sports contest, and that's the kind of stuff that resonated with me. So yeah, those are probably my top three. I like David Manning. I also liked out of the East Coast, I like some of the guys like Dick Worley and Dick Kroll. I always thought they were great, no nonsense, very physical. Like those guys too.
And then the last question is, what advice do you have for young referees trying to make it into the world of professional wrestling?
Work with as many promotions as you can, work with as many wrestlers as you can, try to travel around with the wrestlers, hang out with them, talk with them before, be present when they're going over matches, be present when they're critiquing their matches afterwards. That's a big thing. Whenever, especially if you're ever in a situation where you've got some veteran or some old timer, someone who's watching the wrestlers' matches, and then after the show, he's kind of telling them stuff. Get in there and listen to what he's saying. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can always tell people. Listen to people's opinions, respect their opinions, and formulate your own style through it. But work with as many styles and promotions as you can. One of the things that was starting to pop up here in California a while back was a lot of referees and wrestlers who didn't want to do the lucha style, didn't want to do lucha matches, didn't want to referee lucha matches. And my whole retort to that was, if you're in Southern California, at least, and you're refereeing wrestling, you damn well better learn to do some lucha matches, because it's a good portion of what goes on out here. And if you say you're not going to do that, you're effectively cutting off a good portion of your experience right there. Work with foreign guys, Japanese guys, European guys, Mexican guys. Just learn as many different styles as you can, and watch old tapes and footage. Every wrestler does it. There's no reason the referees shouldn't too. Watch the referees that you like, and find out, why do I like these referees? What is it? The way they move? Is it the way they yell at the wrestlers? Is it the way they enforce stuff? Is it the way they stay out of the way and aren't noticed? Whatever it is that draws you to a certain referee, start watching their matches and keying in on that stuff. I mean, I one of my favorite things is to watch old matches from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where back then you could tell some of these state athletic commission referees didn't even know wrestling was a work, or if they did, they just weren't in on it. So they basically are treating it as a shoot, and you can tell they are in a lot of these old videos. And I like watching the way they react to stuff, and I like watching to the way that the territorial refs react and work in the 70s and 80s. It's an ongoing learning process, and it should never end for anyone, wrestlers or referees. So that's probably my biggest advice. Just keep your eyes open and your mouth shut.
So what's next for Rick Knox?
Right now, I mean, I'm riding this Lucha Underground wave as long as it goes. Hopefully, when we're done shooting season 3 here next month, we'll keep rolling into season 4 with not too much of a break, if one at all. I have not heard anything. I haven't heard any announcements, so I'm not predicting anything. I'm just hoping. But right now, I'm definitely getting older. I did this for about 15 years, 16 years with really very minimal injuries. I had one broken arm back several years ago. Over the last 2 years, I've had several major injuries. I've had a broken hand, a broken arm, a broken leg, a hurt back, and that's all happened in like the last 2 years. So, I mean, I see the writing on the wall that this is getting harder and harder for me to do. And I made a comment on a podcast not too long ago that, had Lucha Underground not come around, or if it does stop, then that's probably when you'll see the last of Rick Knox refereeing, at least on a regular basis. PWG is still a special place for me, and they run pretty sporadically enough to where I could still say, yeah, I'd like to keep doing PWG shows. It's once a month, once every 6 weeks, but overall, I've definitely taken a step back on my refereeing, and will probably continue doing that until I just ride off into the sunset.
So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how can they do that, Rick?
I'm on Facebook. Just I've got my own page under Rick Knox, and then Referee Rick Knox has a fan page on there, and I usually update stuff on both of those. On Twitter, I am at MadMadRef, MADREF, and I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Referee Rick Knox. So yeah, look me up on those things and see what kind of silly stuff I post, and go from there.
Perfect. Well, Rick, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me on Heel Yaz. Are You Afraid of the Mark?
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Good times, and anytime you want to do it again, I'm all down.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.